webinar as part of eConsultancy's Marketing Academy powered by Uptime. Now, as this is the first in a series, I did want to introduce a little bit about what to expect from these before I introduce who you can see on screen there. So, as you all know, if you're lucky enough to be a member, each month eConsultancy's Marketing Academy has a theme where we focus on a particular skill area or a particular topic, bringing you the current trends, best practice, and personalised learning paths, and of course, expert insight, which is where these webinars come in. So each month, we're going to close out a topic with a fireside chat with one of our favourite experts, practitioners, and even sometimes rebels. But having explained what to expect from these, let me introduce who you can see on screen. So hello, I'm Rose Keane. I'm the Content and Insight Director at eConsultancy. I may be a familiar face to some of you if you've joined any of our sessions previously. But today I am lucky enough to be joined to close out July's social media theme by the brilliant Lisa Hale. So Lisa is Specsavers Head of Broadcast, PR, Social and Partnerships. Now she joins us today to discuss both Specsavers' approach to social, as well as her view on how things are changing. Because if there's one thing we know about social media is it does not stay still. I think that's fair to say. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I feel honoured that this was your first. I didn't realise.
Yes, you're a normal guest.
Wow.
And I could not think of someone better to join for it.
Oh, that's so nice. Thanks, Rose.
Now, I always like to sort of start these kind of conversations with something a bit fun, so our audience can get to know you as a person, not just your job. So as we're talking about social media, I was wondering if I could ask what your first social media memory was.
I was like wondering where to go with this. I reckon it was probably chat rooms, you know, like the ones that you could only go on when your mum wasn't on the phone, asking randomers in the US what their ASL is. But I think in a work sense, my first memory is probably, weirdly, I feel like it's come full circle, but it was setting up a Facebook community group for Neal's Yard back in 2010, which is showing my age now. But yeah, that was sort of my first professional foray into social media.
Wow. Yes, ASL is not something I've thought about for some time, but I've had a flood of nostalgic memories of things I definitely probably shouldn't have been doing online.
I know we talk about the Online Safety Act, right?
I dare say we might touch on that later. Fantastic. So thank you for also sharing your sort of first professional exposure to social as well. Now, I know that your role is now multifunctional, but social media is definitely part of the mix there. So I think we should probably start here with maybe exploring how Specsavers really approaches social media, and indeed actually how that fits into that broader comms approach, which of course all sits under your particular umbrella.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm social specifically. I've always been sort of that. When I started Specsavers, head of social was my first role. At the time, there wasn't really any social media. It was sort of everybody just put on there what they wanted at any point, and it had no sort of real role or strategy. So it's definitely, and whilst my remit is currently broad, it's the area that I am extremely passionate about. So it's a bit of it's not a tricky question. It's just a very broad question in terms of Specsavers' approach to social, because we've got so many different businesses within Specsavers. We're not just about glasses. So to stop me sort of going down wormholes, I'm going to structure it in, just talk about the actual structure and where social sits within that, and then how we approach, I suppose, the annual briefs. And I think that gives a really good summary. And within that, I've got some case studies as well that I can use as an example. Is that all right? So I'll go through, and at any point, Rose, if you've got questions, just interrupt and stop me and I'll explain. But I'm going to just share it in a bit of a structured response. Yes, like I said, to stop me going down wormholes.
Yes, start at the beginning, finish at the end. Sounds perfect.
Yes, we'll give it a go. So the marketing team is made up, the Specsavers marketing teams in the UK, but globally as well, are made up of sort of three what we call customer journey teams, and it's essentially the marketing funnel. So you've got awareness and consideration team, trading and activation team who focus on sort of shopper marketing and volume, and then customer retention and engagement team who focus on loyalty. So it's essentially split into the funnel, I suppose. My team specifically oversees brand comms, like you said, social PR partnerships, and more recently, awareness and consideration advertising as well. And then we lean into sort of global hubs for insights, brand and creative support, as well as we use external agencies like Golin, Strive, Tangerine, and various regional PR agencies for PR partnerships and social, so for the more specialist areas. And we made a sort of a conscious decision recently to look at content holistically. So I joined in 2019 and it was just social, and then we built social and PR, then social PR and partnerships. And like I said, we've sort of brought advertising into that fold as well. And I'll come on to why that's important in a bit. But it's important to point out that we look at it as one rather than silos. But in terms of how we approach social to fit within the broader brand comms approach, so everything we do obviously starts with a specific marketing challenge, and we structure our activity accordingly. So in terms of awareness, so our objectives are awareness and consideration. It's all about keeping Should Have Gone to Specsavers alive in an always on way. So we're lucky to have extremely high levels of brand awareness through the amazing work that our creative hub have done around Should Have Gone to Specsavers. So our focus here is really on keeping those high levels of attention, maintaining, because we can barely grow it anymore. It's extremely high. So the way we've sort of maintain it is about evolving it. So our amazing TV ads and advertising, and we've been doing that for a very long time, but the way people are consuming media is changing. So we've had to evolve how and where Should Have shows up beyond more traditional advertising. And the way we do that in social is multifaceted. So naturally, everyone's going to say this, a strong tone of voice is really important, to be disruptive, leaning into audience trends and culture wherever possible.
Specsavers is famous for your tone of voice as well. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it is. It's something that we've worked on over the years, really like understanding where the line is as well, and heroing the underdog. And we've spent a lot of time on refining that, and it takes a lot of time to keep it in place as well. Like it's something that is easily forgotten as people change, new people come in. So we're constantly having to update the team on that. It's a really important part of everything we do, and it lives across everything. But yeah, like I said, leaning into trends as well. And that used to come to life a lot in like reactive social and Twitter originally. I think we drove a lot of fame a couple of years ago in those channels. And while we still do sort of reactive today, I guess the landscape has changed. And I suppose we're investing more in regular stunt activations that generate talkability. So you might have seen the van parked on the bollard, or some amazing copywriting that our creative team did for Oasis, the original Blur rivals, which Oasis ended up sharing on their channels. Last week we sponsored Glastonbury, which is like a lookalike festival in Barry Island, and we had a lot of fun around that as well. So we're always looking for like really fun cultural moments that we can jump on, and they don't always have to be huge. It could be quite niche, like Glastonbury. I wasn't biased, being Welsh. It's a thing in Wales.
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think I just to touch on that, how you're able to be sort of responsive to kind of what happens, even if that's perhaps less of the machine of sort of virality as it used to be. If we go back to sort of, I don't know, sort of 7 or so years ago, where that was really sort of a core driver of awareness. I mean, how does that work how do you facilitate that? And how does that work within Specsavers?
What being the reactive side of things?
Yes.
It was funny because something literally just came across our desk, and it's exactly that. We were discussing how we maintain this in the future, and it's about trust. I think is really important. So trust. So our leadership trusting in our teams to trust that they understand the brand and know where the benchmarks are, and trust them to make quick decisions. I think if you over-egg that process, that kills it quite quickly. So there needs to be a really dynamic process in place as well, in terms of finding those trends, sending them through, and signing those off. So yeah, it's a bit of both, of really understanding the brand and then having that process in place for quick wins.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, that it ties back to that foundation you were saying about everyone knowing the tone of voice really well, so that you can understand how we would engage with this, and indeed if we would engage with that.
Yeah.
I think you are halfway through your structure.
No, that's fine. There's that's what I mean about rabbit holes, wormholes. You can go off on a tangent with it, so it's good to sort of be pulled back. So yeah, we also we've also been looking at how we can stretch should have gone to Specsavers conceptually as well, and reach a sort of new younger audience who maybe didn't grow up with the TV ads that we're famous for among sort of millennials and the like. So we'd also built up quite, like, around that reactive activity that we did, we built up quite a reputation in the sports community, and then should have gone to Specsavers, obviously like a key part of the cultural vernacular as well in sport. So we explored the meaning behind should have and how it's about celebrating fails and heroing the underdog. And we decided to pilot a concept around supporting the UK's worst performing football team, who's basically eyes and ears for letting them down on a weekly basis, and then giving them the star treatment and coaching them to flip them into the best worst team. So we started that 4 years ago, and each season we do a call out for the worst Sunday League team to basically put themselves forward, and then we document their journey through YouTube and social. And each season we give them like Premier League coaching. We started with Jimmy Bullard, we've had Harry Redknapp, and we've more recently got Micah Richards, and we treat the team to obviously sight and hearing tests, but new kit, recruitment support, film premieres, rooftop bus tours. And that started off just as a pilot with limited investment and no media spend at all. But we realised we were onto something because it was organically gaining traction in PR and on social. So with that information, we decided in the following season, so from season 2 onwards, to secure media investment behind it. So we partnered with Copper90, Spotify, and The Rest Is Football. More recently, and as time has gone on, we've sort of broadened out the reach as well, because whilst it was originally aimed at younger audiences, we noticed that, you know, just in terms of how marketing is shifting, it's more about communities, and we're actually appealing to the sports community as a whole, not just that younger demographic. And it's really gone from strength to strength. So we've just wrapped up the results. We're in the process of wrapping up season 4, but season 3, we saw 25 million views across the series with an average watch time of 7 minutes, which I'll come on to, as obviously attention is so important. And all the content is designed with PR in mind as well. So we know they went on This Morning, they've been on ITV, we got a lot of press coverage off the back of it. And off that, we've seen a 14% incremental reach and double our best ever performing TV ad in terms of ROI on econometrics. So it really is gaining momentum, and it's just sort of a more audience first, relatable way to do social and awareness in today's age, like beyond the usual sort of TV and out of home buys.
I think it's
Go on.
I think it's a brilliant campaign. I'm sure everyone who's seen it would agree. What I really like about it is I think it's a fantastic example of a brand being a part of culture rather than just responding to culture. And I know that's something that is kind of, I guess there's always been an aspiration, but certainly now, and we saw a lot of activation around the World Cup that was essentially trying to tap into that. We don't want to be an interruption to your sport. We want to add to the culture more broadly. So I think this is a great example of that.
Yeah, and driving that community as well around a brand, which is so hard to do. So yeah, we're really proud of it and where it's been. And I did drop you a video, but I'm a bit worried about time. I can't believe it.
I think we can showcase it. I'll share that, and we can.
Yeah, let's do that then.
We can have a watch.
Brits love Specsavers, and their iconic should have gone to Specsavers ads. Problem is, young people consume media differently. So, how do we evolve our hero message to stay relevant? Answer: by tapping into the nation's love of local grassroots football and an underdog.
Whatever's about to happen, that's a great start.
To get the attention of a younger audience and be a credible part of culture. Enter Best Worst Team and the UK's most legendary losers, Come Albion from Swansea.
Played 21, lost 21, goal difference of minus 191, no points.
A football team so bad that every single player should have gone to Specsavers.
Am I in the right place for Specsavers' Best Worst Team?
Players can't even take throw-ins.
Oi! Who kicked that?
I don't know what your toughest job in football has been to date, but I think this might be it.
Oh my God.
Coached by the legendary Harry Redknapp with the help of the iconic Chunks
What a special football challenge.
and Copper90. We created a credible underdog story our super savvy audience actually wanted to follow. becoming a genuine part of the conversation on social,
Have some of that!
online, in press and on broadcast.
Performing football team.
Swansea's Come Albion Football Club finally earned themselves the title.
2-0. It goes that way, unfortunately.
Swansea Football Club, deemed Britain's worst side, has been treated to an open top bus.
I think we've got a new incentive now, Emma, as a Specsavers Best Worst team.
I think it's better to be the worst team in the country than the second worst.
With attention and budget-busting results. Boosting brand awareness by 10% amongst target audience and driving positive sentiment with 70% of viewers more likely to consider Specsavers. It even made the brand more likeable than Gen Z's beloved Netflix. Boom. Specsavers' Best Worst team wasn't just about football. It was about being authentic, human, and community driven. Make Specsavers relevant again? Done.
I mean, I think it's just a fantastic example, isn't it? And it actually kind of leads into the next question I was kind of going to ask you. But Specsavers is obviously very famous for its maintenance of its sort of challenger brand identity and approach, even though, you know, you are market leaders. So I guess my question is, how do you maintain that, given you are market leaders? And also, what does that maybe do to the direction of campaigns? I think previously we've spoken about the fact that it's, you know, perhaps less about awareness, though maybe specifically within Gen Z and younger. That's still a thing you want to achieve. But it's more towards things like behaviour change.
Oh gosh, it's a really big question. I think I'll tackle the challenger mindset question first, and then I think it's worth talking about how we approach consideration, because I talked awareness is sort of one part, but how we approach consideration really informs everything, really, because it's so important for us. But yeah, I think as a market leader, it's even more important for us to have a challenger mindset and sort of keep our position. It's easy to get complacent and think you can just buy your way to success. And then you end up doing what everyone else is doing, which is pretty bland, I suppose, if that's what you do. Like, you're just the same as everyone else. You just get lost in all the noise. So the key is sort of for us is to find the gaps and look where we can make sort of incremental gains. So I guess the mentality for us is really pretend we have no budget, or like a very limited budget, and think, well, what do we do in that case? And we've taken this sort of challenger mindset into two key spaces, one being infusing creative ideas with earned thinking. So it's really interesting, actually. I've been speaking to a few brands lately where there's sort of this unspoken tension emerging around creative ideation. Traditionally, earned was seen as a channel where advertising messages might end up. If you're lucky, you might get a nib here and there. But when you decide to earn attention in the first place through the idea itself, it becomes the strategy, not just the channel. And that idea can technically come to life for free. Obviously, there's like celebrities involved and stuff like that, but not typical media investment and media buys. And then you supercharge it with media spend. And it's when we've taken that approach that we've seen, I guess, some of our most cost-effective results for the brand, because it's generating that cut through in a sea of advertising that's out there, but also generating talkability. So it's like an add-on. And that's something, if you think about advertising in a standard way, wouldn't do. And I think Best Worst Team is a really good example of that. But I think the work we've done on audiology in the last couple of years as well is a really good example of how we've taken that approach. So particularly with audiology, you have to be a challenger brand, because we have to act like a challenger brand because we're not known for audiology, we're known for glasses. The other layer to that is that people are very avoidant of the category because they don't want to talk about it. It makes them feel old. So we had to be earned first here and lean into like culture and bold disruptive ideas to stand out. And over the years, we've contributed to a 50% reduction in hearing loss denial off the back of the couple of campaigns that we've done. And I've got those two examples. I think you've got them. So these are the examples here, two campaigns that we've done as part of that. And both of them, the first one, Misheard Lyrics, is a Cannes Lion Award Grand Prix winner. And then the Relationship Aid won gold and silver at Cannes Lion this year as well. So they're two campaigns that we as a team are really proud of. And yeah, yeah, we'll show them and then we can chat about it.
So we're going to start with misheard lyrics.
Yeah.
People avoid getting a hearing test for up to 10 years because it makes them feel old. But while hearing loss is isolating and scary, mishearing can actually be a lot of fun.
Now I thought I'd share some of my favorite misheard lyrics.
Philippe's not your dad.
I'm friends with the monster.
Specsavers aim to create a hearing test people wanted to listen to. That's where this guy came in. Rick's biggest hit is one the world has been mishearing for years. So we scanned the internet for the song's most misheard lyrics, rewrote the song, and got Rick to re-record it. Creating the misheard version. Then released it to the nation's ears without explanation as the world's first mass hearing test, causing chaos across socials.
Did I just hear Rick sing My Aunt's Been Naked?
I've been singing the wrong lyrics the whole time.
Wouldn't catch nits. Rick, what is happening?
Did I just get rickrolled by Rick Astley?
Igniting a national conversation on hearing loss.
Rick Astley.
Rick Astley.
Rick Astley.
This is a really clever idea because people with hearing loss mishear.
I'm absolutely loving the resurgence of Rick Astley.
He's hoping the revamped song will encourage more people to get their ears checked.
The misheard version was played over 20 million times in the first 8 hours, driving a 138% increase in hearing loss searches, making hearing the country's #1 trending topic, leading Specsavers hearing test bookings to increase a record 1,220% above target, without a single pound of media investment. Finally, the nation had listened.
I think you have one more example for us, so we'll just play that.
Hearing is key to romantic connection, but millions of British couples are being disconnected by hearing loss. Hearing aids can help them reconnect. 1 in 3 users even report more physical intimacy with their partner, but there's a stigma around wearing them.
Never getting a hearing aid.
Instead, they spend 11 billion a year on more exciting products to bring the spark back. So to get couples thinking differently, we scanned our hearing aid product spec, found its sexiest features, and used them to turn the hearing aid into the hottest adult intimacy device of 2026. Introducing the Relationship Aid.
Small, but oh so powerful. AI-powered technology enhances your senses. Discreet and designed to be used anywhere on date night, in a crowded bar, or even in a work meeting.
We anonymously launched it with the internet's biggest relationship expert.
This is a game changer for your relationship.
I'm so intrigued.
Can't wait to use this with my boo.
Oh my god, naughty!
I have to try this with the wife.
Ahead of Valentine's Day, we revealed the truth.
A new device that will change your relationship forever. A hearing aid.
Beg your pardon?
It's actually a hearing aid from Specsavers.
Mr. Paul Bronson!
Paul C. Bronson!
The love god, Paul C. Bronson.
Hearing loss is a big issue. One of the best things you could do for Valentine's Day is
get your hearing checked. As a result, more people search for hearing aids than vibrators across Valentine's week. Hearing aid stigma fell by 41%. Bookings soared as hearing checks changed from a solo medical appointment to a couple's date, leading to hearing aid sales increasing by 69% in Valentine's week. Yes, seriously, 69%. By focusing on love, not loss, we turned hearing aids from a turn-off to a turn-on.
Is it in yet?
Yes, dear.
Very funny, creative thing. I like that Rick Astley element because as an elder millennial, of course, I remember the trend for Rick rolling as well. So a nice little nostalgic nod for me there.
Yes, he just rickrolled his audience right back. So that was such a fun one.
I think it's fantastic, and I like also what you said about the shift of perspective of creative moving to actually the strategy itself. I'm wondering if we could dive into what's potentially driving that in your view.
Yeah, I think in our view and in our world, for us, the biggest growth, because we, like we said, when people know us, that's not the job to be done. So the sort of standard brand building marketing theories that we hear, they're interesting and they're useful for awareness and all the should have stuff that we do. But when it comes to our biggest growth area, it's about changing the minds of what we call passive considerers, people who are ambivalent towards us, or full-on rejectors of the brand. So these are people that see us laugh at our TV ads, but don't see somewhere Specsavers as experts or somewhere they would want to go. Or they don't see sort of sight and hearing as a real issue for them or their loved ones as something like, like it's something as part of a regular health check, like going to the dentist or whatever. So our job is to build resonance and relevance with this audience to drive that brand consideration. And that is, for us as a business, fundamental, because that is where growth is going to come from. But studies have shown that to drive brand consideration, you need attention, and you need at least 10 seconds of attention on your content. And a few years ago, we'd rely solely on TV or radio or other high attention platforms to do this job. But today, people are being completely bombarded with advertising. I think people see around like 10,000 ads a day. Ad blockers are on the rise. People report feeling annoyed by irrelevant ads. So we can't rely on traditional advertising to a 2026 problem like this. So that's really where that earned thinking comes into its own. But for social, so it's really where PR and social media need to work as a team. It cannot work in silos. And it's really important for social media specifically, because despite what the industry tells you, which is that social media is a low attention format, it's not, if you know how to use it properly. So it's definitely a misconception that it only holds a few seconds of attention. That's only true if you follow the recommendations in terms of how the platforms tell you to use it, because they're essentially built to deliver against awareness and conversion metrics, not that messy middle bit that requires that deeper attention, because technically it's harder to do, it's harder to advise on, and it's harder to measure. But, it doesn't, so Specsavers got that sort of consideration related problem, and that's where we need high attention and we need people to see sort of those complex messages. So we essentially have gamed how we approach content and how we buy media back to how we act like a challenger brand. So we do that through always on. So we have like this drumbeat, consistent sort of flow of content that adheres to what we call Project 10 principles. So how they hold at least 10 seconds of attention. That's our benchmark. And sort of drip feed the reasons that help change people's minds. And we've been doing that since 2021. And we've seen consideration steadily rise over time. But then we also use it for campaigns as well. And that's vital there. It's making sure that whatever that big idea is rooted in real human audience first behaviors, trends, culture, or we're solving real world problems. And that means then it can work hard in all channels, not just in above the line. Because I think what we need to remember, the key takeout is that served doesn't mean seen, and you can't buy your way to success like you used to. So that's why it's really important for us.
It's sort of tapping into that value exchange, isn't it? The attention is gained through providing value, whether or not solving a problem or getting people to laugh. You mentioned obviously the focus on attention there being the primary metric, though it's a bit more challenging to measure. I know that's obviously been a focus at Specsavers, and particularly moving towards measurements around attention and making that into associated with brand or organizational growth, business outcomes, essentially. So what was involved in that shift, and what has that shift then allowed you to do?
So I'm going to call out Tangerine here, who are our social agency, and Anna Wilson, who's their Director of Digital, has been instrumental to the work that Specsavers has done on attention. She's an absolute genius. So it was working with her, both of us got a little bit obsessed with this, because I was obsessed with the idea that, well, this is our growth area, but they're saying that social media is low attention. And she loves research and graphs, which is not my area at all. But I had this idea and she had the brain, and we sort of worked on a way of really proving out the fact that social media is not a low attention platform, and if you do it properly, it can actually have incredible business results. So essentially, we sort of we found ourselves sort of in a lot of conversations where we were being told you're not following the rules, and it was difficult because we had nothing industry wide. We had our own like results, but you kind of need to show the impact on the business outcomes. So when you look at what the industry give you to measure results, it's quite bottom funnel, ROAS, CPM, clicks, which all favour sort of cheap reach that leads to ads only getting 1 to 2 seconds of view time. Or you've got like brand lift studies, essentially, which basically mark their own homework and look at sort of simple exposure rather than deep perception change over time. So there was no way to really fully understand the accuracy and the impact of high attention content in social. So we wanted to prove in a formal study 2 things. So one, that social media is a place where you can hold high levels of attention if you come at it from that earned first sort of publisher mindset. And B, when you get that attention, we wanted to prove the impact that it had on business outcomes. So we worked with Lumen, who are attention scientists, literally strapped eye trackers on people, and we sort of replicated the meta environment and audited 3 years worth of activity. So that included shallow content, so traditional ads that delivered sort of fast brand nudges and high reach, but decayed in attention quite quickly. And we also looked at deep content. So that was more our editorial publisher-led content that drove meaningful dwell time and message comprehension of around sort of 7 to 13 seconds. And we found that earned-led content generated 128% more attention than standard social advertising, the way we were being told to do social advertising. I mean, if there's ever a reason to argue to merge your PR and social team, that's it. And also a 33% increase in brand trust and a 51% increase in perception that Specsavers was a caring brand. But what was super exciting was what happened when we paired earned-led content with bottom funnel advertising. So 84% of people who saw both said they were more likely to book a test versus 59% who only saw the bottom funnel ads. So that's a 30% uplift in people more likely to book with us. So that was like a killer stat for us in terms of, it's essentially Les Binet and Peter Field, long and short of it. Yeah, but that you can do it on social, and social is actually a really effective place to do it. If you show up with sort of strong, authentic human content that holds high levels of attention, and it makes the bottom funnel work harder. So then we had all these sort of results. And as a business, we sort of tested that hypothesis over years, and then we had this study. But it still was, it proved our point, but how do we build this into actual measures that can help inform how stakeholders carve up budgets, essentially? So we developed our own internal measurement framework called CAR, which is consideration is driven by audience, getting the right audience at the right time in the right place, plus resonance. So resonance is looking at sort of KPIs around attention, sentiment, and key message takeout. And this formula and the way that we position campaigns against it helps us demonstrate in simple terms to senior stakeholders the importance of earned-led thinking in paid environments.
See how that would be enormously powerful.
Yes, it is.
Apart from obviously having to actually do the original research, which sounded like it was quite an in-depth project, were there any frictions or challenges you sort of faced in establishing that as a structured approach?
Yes, I think there are challenges, because I think a lot of people are probably like, why? Like, just follow the rules and just
doesn't sound like
just
Specsavers. Sorry.
Well, it doesn't, does it?
No.
It's not Specsavers. And we were brought in to do a job, and my job is to get results. And by doing what everyone else is doing, we're not going to get that impact. We need those high levels of attention in the consideration work. And so I would say that the friction came from that, and trying to explain to people, because people are sort of geared towards what the platforms tell them to do, what the industry is telling you to do, and when you question why, or that's when it starts to, you start to sort of maybe shake people's beliefs, I suppose, in something that they've been doing the whole time. And yeah, it was an interesting period, and it took us a while, but the results speak for themselves. The results were there anyway. We just needed to package it in a way that wasn't us being like, look at this amazing engagement. Like, it just isn't enough, what does it mean? We had to take it that step further.
Absolutely. I imagine that was a great driver of unlocking trust as well, to perhaps do more of what was working.
It really did. And I think that's where we've been entrusted more and more to be doing the types of campaigns that are winning Cannes Lion Awards. That didn't come easy. It's taken us years to get to that point. It's taken us to be able to structure the teams accordingly, to be able to merge PR and social, to be able to bring awareness and consideration advertising into that mix as well. And internally, us as a team, as a marketing team, working really closely with our counterparts. So working with the media team, working with the web team, working with the CRM team, and being sort of the conductor of the orchestra to be able to bring these campaigns to life.
I think it's interesting, that idea of sort of bringing those teams together, and I think that may be a helpful foundation for the next thing we're going to talk about, which I know is a topic that's been front of mind for you, which of course is AI, which is obviously having a major effect in reshaping the social landscape as it is now, and probably the way it will look significantly in the future. So I was wondering if we could dive into Meta Andromeda and what you see as the sort of broader effects of the expansion of that, and maybe what the next phase might look like.
Oh, it's huge. Like, we can't underestimate what this means. And the thing is, you can look at it as just an algorithm update, and so it's not that important. But when it happened, I looked at it like, well, what is this telling us about the industry? Because these things happen because they're telling us something. So, I mean, in a nutshell, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of it, just in case some people on the call may think it's just an algorithm update. So it basically fundamentally changes the way AI reads creative. So previously it sort of had to assume what was in the creative, but now it can sort of understand emotion and tone and seasonality and overlays and subtitles. And Meta's sort of spending a lot of money on this area. But what it means for us in marketing as a whole, and the bit that I get really buzzed about and excited, is that it's signaling sort of a broader direction in the digital industry around interest-based marketing and an interest economy. So it's to the point now where platforms are allowing people to curate their own algorithms, like Dear Algo on Threads, and you've got the Insta toggle where you can choose what you want to see and what you don't want to see. And platforms that aren't doing that, like X, are obviously really struggling because people are just so used to being in the world that they want to be seeing and they want to be part of. So for the first time ever in history, creative has become the targeting, not the media buy. That is a fundamental shift. And I think my take out of that, and why that's happening, is that it's in reaction to a world that's about to be absolutely flooded with automated creative slop, essentially. And that's going to damage platform users' experience on the platforms. So making creative work harder for the end user and improving their experience is sort of really important for platforms to keep people on there and keep that usage high. And ultimately what Andromeda has done is sort of up the bar on content quality, and how now taking that earned approach that we've talked about to social based on sort of trends, culture, interests is absolutely key. You can't just sort of shout at people anymore. You have to really play into their interests and be truly audience first with your content. So yeah, that's my sort of takeout. And there's a few different things that means in practice for creative, like varying perspectives, not just what you say, but how you say it. Like, all these different things are going to play such an important part of this. And native content is really interesting as well. And that being king now, being as lo-fi as possible. But there's some interesting shifts happening. You can see, because with native content, you've got some brands who are doing what we call like chaos marketing. So you've got, I think Diesel's a really good example. Someone showed me, the Tangerine guys were showing me yesterday some of the Diesel examples where it's just mental. That's the only way to describe it. Like, it's just stuff that's designed to shock.
Yes.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got like this AI automated creative stuff. So it is sort of like these two extremes, and I think it's all about finding who you are as a brand in the middle of those, you know, balance, distinctiveness with some stopping stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we've seen a weirding of advertising across all platforms, and partly that's and channels. I think that's partly a Gen Z thing, because the Zoomers, they love somewhat unhinged content. But also I think it's that idea of cut through. I do question if everyone starts doing it, will it stop thumbs anymore, because if it becomes sort of universal. But I do think it's very interesting. There's some great examples of that. The RSPB is actually one who did a great job with using sort of chaotic content, and considering they're a charity primarily associated
I've not seen
with bird
that.
watchers, it's quite incredible what they've achieved on TikTok in particular. Bird of the Week, if you want to have a look at the campaign, it's one of my favorites.
Oh my god, how have I not come across that? Like, birds are like my hobby. And social media. I'm going to be looking at that later.
Brilliant. Well, I'd love to offer a recommendation. I think what else is interesting about your take on the Andromeda change and sort of those broader shifts in social is it's something we're actually seeing in other platforms as well, and other trends, which is that the automation and the rise of AI generated content and the scale that allows is actually in some ways forcing an additional focus on the most human elements.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably somewhat reassuring for some of us anyway. But I do think that there is something in that in terms of a strategic advantage. Is that something you believe is true, and you're acting at Specsavers? What's your view on that?
Absolutely. I think passionate storytelling with humans at the heart of it is not outperforming everything else that we see for no reason. That people are dying for that realness. And as a brand, it's our duty to add value to people's experience in social, and not add to the slop and the potential mental health crisis that's going on. And I think as Specsavers, we're really lucky in that what we do is for the good. That was the whole ethos of what the brand has been founded on. Democratizing eye and ear care and hearing care, and looking after people's eyes and ears and encouraging them to. So that's a great message. We're not encouraging kids to eat crisps or eat biscuits. We're trying to help people improve their health and do it in a way that actually adds value, and create, where possible, that lean back content. 80% of people that watch Best Worst Teen watched it on TV. YouTube on TV, which is another trend that we're seeing. So we're creating quality content that people want to engage with over a long period of time, rather than just tosh that people just want to scroll past. And I think for quite some time now, people social media, particularly because of that self-fulfilling prophecy of it being a low attention platform, because it's there for conversions and awareness, we've sort of focused on that left brain content. And it's sort of given itself a bad reputation, and we've lost the art of the show, as Orlando would call it. And I think this is why I find Andromeda and all of this stuff really exciting, because I'm like, it's back. I listened to a Walk podcast the other day, and they said it's the renaissance of earned and PR, and it really is, because that storytelling is becoming fundamental to good content again.
That's certainly true of the conversations I've been having, and also just my own anecdotal experience of these platforms as well, and where I find myself paying attention. I'm sure that's true of our audience as well. So just before I open up for our sort of final question from me, that is, I'm going to just remind the audience they can ask questions. We will get to them in just a couple of minutes, but I wanted to close out with asking you for a piece of advice, actually, more than anything else. So if you were to offer our audience one piece of advice for marketers who are looking to looking to sort of shift their social media into being a real driver of business results in this current context, given all those changes we've talked about. What would your advice or top tips be?
I haven't gone into GEO and LLM visibility, but that is something else that is absolutely huge. And again, requires, I think the last stat I saw was 80% of earned thinking is what informs LLM visibility. So the one piece of advice, given what's happening there and the structures that are needed to make that work, given what's happening in Andromeda, taking a step back and going, what does this mean for the marketing industry? The single piece of advice would be for your teams to be integrated. And that doesn't just mean like a weekly catch up in the calendar. I mean, fully integrated. So your brand comms teams need to look at content holistically and treat it like an ecosystem rather than sort of different silos. And that, I think that would be my number one piece of advice. But can I give one more secondary sort of like, I guess, accent to that is to also pop the hood. So dig deeper and ask why, and don't just take the platform's advice and go with it, because you'll end up spending a lot of money to be pretty average, essentially. Those are my sort of 1.5 pieces.
Asking why is always a good piece of advice. And I think it's worth remembering, as much as these platforms can be enormously helpful, their objectives are not necessarily always aligned. So understanding where there's that Venn diagram not overlap is quite good.
Exactly. You've got to make the system work for you and don't work for the system. Yeah.
That's a great takeaway. So we do have a question in the chat. Again, I would encourage anyone, we probably have time for 2. So if you want to share any further questions. But we have one from Paul, who says, given the rise of social commerce, e.g. TikTok made me buy it, are you doing any activation further down the funnel for social at Specs?
Yeah, we do a lot. But that is in the activation and trading team, which is a different CJT to us. So my remit is purely awareness and consideration. But we do always look, like that's what the study was about with Lumen, is how can we impact bottom funnel, and also what happens when we use more of the earned content in bottom funnel. So we work really closely with the e-commerce team and the performance team on that to make sure we're sharing learnings and sharing content and just following best practice on that front.
Brilliant. I always find social commerce quite interesting, and particularly on TikTok, as commerce and content is so integrated there that often you can't necessarily tell the difference just in the content as to whether you're seeing organic content or things drive. TikTok shop.
I think as well, like it's going to be way more integrated in the future, like messaging, commerce, search, social is all going to live in I think like an AI agent that's going to be like your online wingman. So it's all going to sort of, the funnel is going to collapse at some point and all merge into one. So me saying I don't work on that bit, that's that team, is going to be a thing of the past, probably in the not too distant future.
Yeah, we are seeing that extreme shortening of the journey, which is likely to only become more so the case across more journeys. And I think that is something that all marketers have to pay attention to. We talk a lot about the shifting sphere of influence, one of my pet topics, but I could quite easily talk about that for another hour. So as we have no other questions, I'm just going to sort of close out with a few final points. First of all, we've just had a question sneak under the door. So I'll just ask this one quickly.
These are all the names of people in my team. I wonder if I didn't plant these.
You stacked the audience. Why is Lisa so great? No, no. Lee asks, how do you see the role of social media creators and influencers changing in the future, if at all? So, Lisa, would you be able to tackle that relatively swiftly?
I think it's. I think influencers and creators are the industry's ownable, buyable shortcut to storytelling. So I don't think they're going anywhere. I think the need to be more authentic is going to be really important. And I think there's going to be a surge in not necessarily celeb influencers, but expert to experts. So influencers that might not have a huge following but are experts. And also, there's this really exciting app that everyone should look at called Social Tip, which is making people, me, like with my 600 followers, an influencer, and getting rewarded for that financially. So there's something about even real people now, not even like nano, becoming influencers in the future. So that's a really exciting space.
No, I agree with that completely. It's sort of a shortcut to storytelling. I think it's part of the reason why we're seeing it become such a larger part of
because that's
approaches.
It makes sense, right? Because it makes money. So that's the answer, but it's not. There's something in the middle that you need to look at as well, and that could be your competitive advantage.
100%. Of course, we're also seeing the rise of synthetic influencers.
Oh my God, that's so depressing. That's depressing.
I have a mixed view. Again, I will do this quickly. A mixed view on it. I don't think it'll be the end of human influencers. I think if it is going to have a role, it'll fulfill the sort of like community less reach content producers. But I guess we will see. Nobody likes to feel tricked. So if you are thinking about having a synthetic influencer, make sure you clearly market.
Like the Sheer Lux ones, yeah.
Like the Sheer Lux ones. So great case study if anyone wants to go have a look at what how your community would or could potentially respond. Well, Lisa, I just want to say a huge thank you for your time and coming on and sharing.
Thanks for having me.
These and some fantastic examples. I don't think I'll ever think about hearing aids in the same way again.
Good. That's what we want.
So one mindset shifted at least.
Brilliant.
So yes, a huge thank you. I found this very insightful. It's opened up a lot of questions in my mind as well, and I'm sure that's true for the audience. Now, for those of you in the audience, I just want to shout out the fact we have another expert webinar coming up at the end of August. It actually touches on, or will touch on, some of the themes we've talked about today, but it's going to focus on a campaign that used a whole lot of black dye and some very creative thinking to turn the algorithm against itself to raise awareness of harmful content online. And I'm going to be sitting down with Lucy Doolan, who's the creative director at Havas SO, which is part of Havas Health, to talk about that campaign. One thing to know about Lucy is she is hilarious. So come for the case study, stay for the comedy. We actually did clown school together. So there you go. That's
actually
insight. Yes, literally. So I've dropped a link to that into the chat. You can sign up for that for August if you're interested. Also, if you are not a member of eConsultancy's Marketing Academy and you're perhaps interested in getting access to this as an ongoing source of insight, trends, expert advice, best practice, etc., maybe for yourself, maybe for your team more broadly, you can get in touch with us. And I will share a link to that in the chat as well. So do reach out. And with that shared, all that is left for me to say is a huge thank you for joining us today. Again, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, audience.
Pleasure.
And we'll catch you next time. So
thank you so much, Rose.
And goodbye.
Thanks.